Hello, Internet. Welcome once again to another episode of Competent Council for this week. Adi, quick questions. I know you're a very well traveled man. Have you been to any place of worship in in Middle East or in Europe, namely church or temple?
Oh yeah, I mean even in Sabah here, I've been to a few churches and a few temples. Why do you ask,
Mhm.
Hafiz?
I asked because was a proposal a week ago by the government, one of the government minister, to issue a guideline for Muslims to visit all these places of worship of non-Muslim place of worship in Malaysia. I would not ask the question, is it necessary or not? I was how insane is this that we have a reformist minister or unity government minister of religious affair proposing something like this. This guy already created a huge issue last time when he tried to pass a law for the mufti of federal territory, and now he proposing something that eventually Sultan Selangor was against of. What's your take on this?
Okay, but at risk of not being called uninformed here, we are aware that this whole guideline stuff has been sort of put to bed with the announcement made by the Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim saying that it's not necessary and they've U-turned on it. So yeah, we are aware of that. Nonetheless, the fact that this had to become an episode in our ever-evolving landscape in Malaysia here, it does warrant a bit of concern because I don't think it's ever been a case where, I mean, in a pluralistic society where you have to issue guidelines to people on how to, visit places of worship, right? If it's not particularly your religion. I mean, certainly not for me growing up. I never had to be told, oh, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, it's ingrained like, oh, yeah, of course, you don't do that. I mean, as a Muslim, right? If I go to a church, obviously I'm not going to participate in the prayers or the worship of said church because I know it's not my religion, right? But to now have like you said, a reformist minister in a reform oriented government saying things like even implying that guidelines should be in place. I mean, what is the motivation behind it? Is it out of concern, like, is it because wow, many Muslim members of the Muslim community are visiting non-Muslim places of worship? Okay, maybe we should just give them a reminder about things. And is that really the motivation, or is something more nefarious at work here? Is there something more behind the scenes that we don't know? So, we have to police social activities here. We have to morally police how Muslims act in non-Muslim context or non-Muslim situation. It just brings up another conversation that we have in Malaysia, where sometimes religious authorities such as Jakim, which I have to remind is an advisory body, not an executive or legislative body at all. So that means their capacity is only at an advisory level. They should not be the final arbiter of policy or how things should be governed or run, right? That an advisory body is pushing for how people is supposed to regulate their spiritual lives, right? Which is something I've always believed should be highly personal, that the state should not really encroach on, right? Because even though we have adopted Islam as the official religion, we do understand the need to respect the pluralistic society that we have, and in a way, I'm going, even though official religion, I think we have also adopted a few secular practices as well to accommodate our diversity as well, right? The separation in a way uh, of the religion and the state, right? That's why Jakim is advisory, right? It is not a deciding factor. Of course, we have other bodies in the judiciary such as Sharia, but in terms of governance, we have secularized that, I have to say, and to an extent.
Well, you keep saying Jakim is an advisory body, but Jakim has an annual budget of 1 billion ringgit. That's 1,000 million. That's, I think, 10 times more than Perlis GDP. So, it's insane how this so-called advisory body have such a lot of allocation. Just what are they doing with that money? To just issue halal certification. That's it. And of course, incenting things like this, like they probably do some workshop to some ustazah to come up with a proposal like this. And it's insane, just infuriating a lot of people that think that this is totally unnecessary. But I would not go into the nitty-gritty of all this. Why is it necessary or is it not necessary? Because I think a lot of religious leaders would comment on that. We are no ustaz here, but I would like to see it from the. I think you mentioned already, Adi, in few episodes about Madadi government and how Anwar Ibrahim actually delegates his tasks within the government. I mean, the other day we were talking about some of the minister who should pick up some slacks, and this is a. It's not the opposite, but so-called like, can you not make any more mess than already we have? So this kind of sort of minister. So he, like I said, introduced a bill last year that make a huge uh, uh, viral in social media, that people against it, and then now again it's like he has nothing to do at his desk rather than proposing some this ridiculous idea. So I think Anwar should look back. I would not go as far as reshuffling, even though I would, if there's any reshuffle of the cabinets, I think Minister of Religious Affairs should go first, and should be replaced, because this kind of nonsense is not needed in this government, which already had so much pressure at delivering whatever they promise in their manifesto. Well, there's no unity government manifesto, but PH manifesto, at least all this reform, all this energy transitions, bigger agenda, economic bigger agenda that they should deliver before general election. So this kind of issue, I think, should be managed better at the cabinet level before it was mentioned, any mention in public or in parliament, because otherwise this is just gonna keep again and look so incompetent, not just to him, the so-called minister, but to the entire cabinet. So it's unfair for people, ministers who actually delivered on their portfolio. But of course, Anwar is very busy entertaining his best friend from Turkey recently, and then I think this is another. I wouldn't say failure, but Anwar should look into how his best practices dealing and delegations of tasks at this. So, but another thing that I would like to touch on also regarding this matter, a bit pivot from the actual topic, is that if we all of us think, especially Sultan Selangor also says that reject, Anwar says there's no need for guidelines. Wouldn't it be the same in terms of as a principle? Halal certification as well. Like, why we need to be told certain places is halal, is not halal, when we as a Muslim know what halal means. Like, it's okay. The raw material should not contain any pork and lard. Clear. It should be clean, clear. It should be cooked by Muslims or whatnot. So by this definition alone, it's already enough for us to decide, we can see there's no pork and lard, there's no, it's cooked by Muslims or whatever, or whatever that required to be a halal. And the people can decide for themselves. If we think these guidelines for this place of non-Muslim place of worship, it's insane, it's not necessary at all, shouldn't that same principle be applied with halal certificate? I would like to ponder this question to not just you, Adi, but to those who want to comment down below, please. Do you think that is a apple-to-apple comparison?
I mean, aside from conspiracy theories that the whole halal certification is a cottage industry made to just generate money out of exploit
Possibly.
out of religious practice to generate money, right? I mean, it's, to be fair, in I would disagree to an extent, because I wouldn't know to what extent something is halal just by looking at it, right? If there's a certification, then I can be rest assured that the relevant authorities has went through the processes and the supply mechanisms of said company, restaurant, and that everything that they have done is up to a standard that can be considered halal. So that is just my argument to it, like why we need halal certification. So it just makes things easy for regular Muslims that cannot have the time to go through the details of like, okay, is this not cooked with pork and lard? Is the meat done in a halal way? Is it clean and all that? I mean, sometimes when you look at halal, how things are halal, it's almost like common sense. Like food should be clean, regardless, right? But that's a conversation maybe for the clerics or for the people in the comment section who might want to take up Hafiz's question. But I mean, moving towards the whole guidelines thing, right? I mean, like I'm going to backtrack a bit and say, okay, if it is just a reminder to the Muslim community, there are certain things that you just have to be mindful of. Okay, fair enough. But at the same time, uh, I mean, there gets to a point where that can become quite patronizing, right? Because it's almost saying that, oh, so are you saying that I don't know how to take care of myself if I go to, let's say, a temple or a church, right? Uh, I mean, that's for me personally. I don't know about other people. I hope that a lot of most Muslims in Malaysia know that things that you shouldn't do, right? I mean, by default, these are things we know because it's been taught to us, and we always go in with niyat, which is intention of why we do the things that we do. If we come with the niyat to just enjoy, of social revelry, social activities to enjoy with your fellow people, humans, then that is no issue, right? You don't have the niyat or intention to go to a temple or a church to convert, right? To follow their practices or worship. That's almost that's almost common sense. But like I said, maybe I'm just coming from a place where I can see that kind of thing. But regardless, that's the argument to be made. Secondly, it also says that I mean, it does come with. I get why a lot of non-Muslim communities are quite upset about this because now they have to, in a way, be careful of what they do at their events so that they do not provoke any religious sensitivities, I see as a flashpoint because how many Muslim politicians or member of parliament get invited to the Chinese New Year's, to the Deepavalis, to the Taipusams, to just officiate, to enjoy, to fellowship and all that. And then having all these walking on eggshells for the non-Muslim community, it's like, well, we should invite them in the first place because then they have to be careful. The Muslim guests would have to be careful what they do, right? No one wants that when coming into a festival that's meant to celebrate, to enjoy with each other, right? So it's that issue like that. I get where people are saying that, oh, this is damaging to national because it sends the wrong message. But I mean, when it comes to pluralism, the embracement of diversity, I don't think that this should be transposed or superimposed into a religious or Muslim issue because we've seen in the history of Islam, right, that there's always been provisions that accommodates people of non-Muslim faith. Let me look at the Constitution of Medina, that there's always that spirit of pluralism with tribes and people groups that are not Muslim. Even the king of Abyssinia, who was a good friend of the Prophet, was also a non-Muslim. Or even when we look at the great achievements in Islam, like the Bait al-Hikmah, right, the House of Wisdom, that was a gathering place for Muslims, non-Muslims to come, spread knowledge, to rediscover the ancient Greek pagan texts, and that is what helped propel the Enlightenment, the Islamic Golden Age. Or even when we look at the Ibadat Khana in South Asia, which was a discussion place created by Emperor Akbar to have discussion of every faith available so that they can find a common ground, whether it be Islam, Hindu, Buddhist, or Zoroastrian. These are this energy of acceptance and tolerating other faiths as well has always been there when it comes to intellectual development, when it comes to intellectual discourse and discussion. And with Jakim being a advisory council consisting of the I hope the top clerics of the country, they should be aware that these kinds of things have happened throughout Islamic civilizations within the Middle East, within Central Asia, South Asia, and should be also promoted in Southeast Asia. That the Islamic civilizations have thrived because of not just because of what the open-mindedness that they have towards other forms of knowledge beyond let's say, the Arabic context or the Middle Eastern context, always improving, taking in, improving further. And without any of that, the golden age wouldn't have come. And without the Islamic golden age, you wouldn't have the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, and all the wonders of Western modernism that we have today. So, this, we have to be, this is appeal to be a bit more open-minded. I'm not saying be progressive or liberal, but I just think open-mindedness.
Well, just want to respond a little bit to the halal argument. Just go back again to that halal argument. Again, is that I think a few years ago there was a beef cartel importer that actually having falsify a certificate halal, and this is a top importer for beef, and they've done it so many years. They call it a cartel, and it's just one of the few things that got revealed, exposed, and so many out there. My point is that the responsibility of knowing halal should lies on the individual. We should not shift it to a body or whatever, because Jakim are also filled with humans, and humans can be corrupt, and that's the nature of human beings. So I think I would just put the rest my case over there, and if you want to comment on that below, please do so. Going back to the guidelines, once again, Adi. Yes, openness, open-mindedness. It's really a key here to just social cohesion. To foster social cohesion. More in Malaysia, we always, it's our pride to say that, hey, we are, identify ourselves as Malaysian Chinese or Malaysian Indian, Malaysian Malay, and this is something that should be fostered not just at the government level, but also community level. Because what I mean is that rather than we look at our, government leaders to bring us together, it should be more done at the grassroots level. More activity, more approach should be done, and like someone always mentioned that there should be interfaith dialogue or whatever you want to call it. I mean, why don't we do it more often? Because I'm here living in this part of Kuala Lumpur here, surrounded by non-Muslims neighbors. But do I know them? But personally, so even that level, these are the things that get hinder most Malaysians to actually have that social cohesion, because there's a saying in Malay, tak kenal maka tak cinta. So when you do not know someone, it's impossible for you to love them, to whatever them. So August 31st is 7 or 6 months away, but I think it's intertwined. The idea of we want to live in harmony, for whatever your religion is and your race is, it always come back to the idea of being a Malaysian, and this should be fostered towards just not what we speak of, but also what the action that comes out of it. So it's more of that our local community, have this. You don't have to be a president of a big NGO. The local ketua kampung could be the show, but it's not the reality. The reality is that everyone is pointing at the top, and if you say, hey, you see, Anwar is doing very good, but just him, he is a privilege. The people on the ground don't really walk the talk. I would say, in terms of how we're gonna deal with this, because otherwise, Adi, we're gonna talk about something like this again. Believe me, in next 6 months there will be another issue. It's gonna be a KK mat thing. There will be. It's always KK mat, isn't it? They always be the victim of the situation. So yeah, it's gonna keep happening. Anybody, and you have another minister, religious minister, proposing something like this, and of course, Party Islam Malaysia also gonna ride all this wave. It's what they love. It's their major to just ride the wave of other people, slacking and whatnot. So I think that's it for me for this guideline issues.
Yeah, and I think just one last thing from me is that it's funny that it's mostly the opposition that's been up in arms defending this, like say, oh, very good, and all that, right? So, you could make the case that they were the ones that lobbied for this, somehow incited this, pushed for this. But regardless, I think thank you should be given to Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim for nipping this issue in the bud, but also just to remain cautious that if he does believe in the idea of pluralism, the diversity of Malaysia, and want to maintain the social and racial harmony that we have, he needs to take a proactive step to ensure that these kinds of things don't flare up. These things should have been, I mean, it's a question of how did it come to this where it is really, and then it has to be U-turn, right? How did it get to this point? And this has to serve as a reminder that the Madani administration has to be very aware of what is going on within its own administration, within what's its own people doing, because the Minister of Religious Affairs, Naimukta, is directly answerable to the Prime Minister himself, right? I'm sure that they are in regular communication about what is going on. So these kinds of things the Prime Minister has to be on top of it, but also his own administration calling out says, oh, this is not in line with the vision that the people voted us for. This is not in line with the man that the people voted us give this mandate for. These there have been clear manifestos, a clear roadmap of what the Madani government intended to do when it was campaigning and then won the election. Live up to that promise. This is not a conversation that I think most Malaysians want to have, especially Malaysians that are concerned with the idea of racial harmony and living together as Malaysians. So I think that is it from this episode. Also, next up, we have another issue relating to Malaysia, but I think it's a bit more less social and a bit more corporatized, I would say, if that gives any hint of what it is going to be. So, what will it be? That you can stay tuned to the next episode and check us out over there.